the age of 12 years of age, and he got straight into work basically, and the work he got into was cattle dealing, which sounds remarkable. I mean, it just wouldn't happen today, but in those days I suppose anything could have happened, because you'd have done anything to earn a bob, and maybe had to do anything to earn a bob, and earn a bob he certainly has. I mean, he's found himself at the other end of the world, running a company with an average turnover of 200 million New Zealand dollars. Not bad for a man who started with nothing in his pocket. And it's Hugh Greene, and Hugh's in the studio with us today. Good to see you again, Hugh. Welcome.
Thank you.
Should say Dr. Hugh Greene.
Doctor Who Little.
Doctor Who Little. Who much? How did that come about? Because you've just had this conferred on you in Galway, haven't
Yes.
you? How did that happen?
Well, I got very friendly with a fellow from Tom McDonough from Galway over the years. He comes out to New Zealand with horses, and I just run into him at the races one day, and we'd become good friends. And then I think he proposed me for it. And last year, the president of the Galway University, Hughie Moriarty, and he was out in New Zealand, and I spent a bit of time with him. And he just, and I mean, I wasn't, I didn't sort of attach too much importance to it at the time, and then he just sort of said, well, all right, if I come to Ireland this year, he'll get this conferred on me. And I thought a bit about it, and I'll say I'll give you an answer in a month or so. I give him an answer in a month. I said, all right, I'll give it a go.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not something you ever thought about.
Oh, never. No.
I mean, you had anything but a university education.
Yes.
So this was your only chance of getting one. And there was you being conferred with this doctorate as a person who didn't have an academic background, but has achieved as much as any academic did without
Yes,
it. That's probably the story, isn't it?
Well, as I say, when I left Ireland first, they asked you what school I went to, and I said there were a great school in Century Hill, and they had the dates of the month. There was the fair day,
yeah,
and Milford Fair on the 23rd, and they were up in a hill, and I reckon I got a lot of education that stood me well in my life.
Yeah. Did that was that the only thing you wanted to do?
Yes.
At school?
Aye.
So school was boring for you, and
aye.
You wasn't learning much, and there was no interest. You'd sooner got a pair of wellies on and gone up to the mart.
The last year I was at school, I think I don't know whether there were 250 school days or something. I missed 150.
Really?
Aye.
Out working?
Yes.
At 12 years of age, it sounds remarkable this, but at 12 years of age, you were, in fact, cattle dealing.
Well, sort of on the fringe of it anyway.
Yeah.
My father was at it. And, I started walking from all the fairs and droving for people and getting so much ahead.
What does that mean now, droving?
Well, I mean, if you went to Milford Fair and you bought 2 or 3 cattle, and somebody else went and bought 1, and somebody else bought 10, they'd want somebody to drive them home, and you would get you would go around the fair and ask them had any cattle to walk home, and you would get so much ahead for walking them home.
So that's what you did?
Aye.
And how many would you have been walking at one time?
Well, I remember coming out of Milford up past this place here with 86.
86?
Aye.
And it wasn't a road like this?
No, it was very...
How did you keep them in from the fields?
Well, that was the trouble. You used to curse all the farmers for leaving the gates open, and especially the big fairs were in September time, and the farmers, after they cut the crop, they would leave the gates open, and you'd be round the paddock. But it worked out. There were a little fellow from out by the barracks there, out by Cars of the Diamond. He used to come in. He was working for the Stevensons, and he used to come in with cattle to Milford Fair. And I made a deal with him and give him £0.50 to walk back with me as far as his own place. And then there were some divines down halfway down the hill here. They used to give me a hand to take them over the mountain top. And you might give the 2 of them a shilling each.
Amazing.
Aye.
80-odd cows. And how did you know which field they belonged to?
Oh, you'd know every one of them.
Amazing.
And even to this day you would.
Did you lose any on the route?
I did, yes. I remember losing a white bullock. He went in, we're coming up at the bottom of Mile Hill, and the bullock seen the gate where he was reared, and he went through the gate, and of course I knew when I was a bit further on, but I couldn't leave the rest and go back looking for him. So I had to go back the next day to Milford and pick him up and walk him home again.
Wow. What was the longest day you did then, walking them?
Well, the longest day I'd done was one time I left here early in the morning and walked up to Castlefin with cattle, and then went to Claddy. They were smuggled cattle, and brought them back to Letterkenny.
Smuggled?
Aye. And now I come back to Letterkenny. I think I was coming down, in the Port Road when the people were coming home from the pictures at night.
You see, you've had such a full life, you'd need a day to talk about it, but I mean, talk about the first animal you bought.
Well, the first, that wasn't a very successful deal. I bought a little red bullock for £5, and he was a Dexter, and I didn't know that.
What's a Dexter?
That never grows.
Oh.
Very, very small. It was the same size 6 months later.
Yeah.
So you sort of learn them sort of things early in life.
Were you cheated then?
No, well, buyer beware.
Yeah.
You know, so
He saw you coming though.
aye, and then another time in Letterkenny, I bought a red bullock of a fella at £4, and I took it down to my father to see it, and this was on a fair day.
Yeah.
He says, "Were you blind when you bought that?" I says, "No." I says, "What's wrong?" It had a club foot, and I didn't notice
Oh.
it. But I was able to take that back and leave it with a fella, you know, because it was supposed to be sound and right,
And it wasn't.
and it wasn't. Yeah.
Did people stand by the word in those days?
Oh, aye, man.
Yeah.
That was all word of mouth. Nobody ever wrote anything down.
Oh.
Nobody, I mean, that was all, you know, there were very few people you'd see a pencil or a paper or anything. Everybody carried in their head.
You headed off to Scotland
Yes, in 1949.
to do what?
Well, I went to Lough Sloy to work in the tunnels. I worked in Clydebank for a time. But I got into a job there. There were 4 Letterkenny people living in the house with me, or I was living with them more or less, and when you had to go down to the brew, as we call it here, the Labour Exchange, and get cards. See, so I went down and I put my proper age down, and then I went to work at Prestwick Airport. They were building it at the time, and it was 2 and 2pence an hour if you were a man, and if you were a boy it was a shilling. So when I got at the end of the first week I got paid, and it was a shilling an hour. So I went and ripped up all the cards from the brew and went down to Dumbarton and
Became a man?
Become a man. And a short distance.
Well, I mean, eventually you ended up in Tasmania, didn't you?
Yes.
I mean, it's such a strange place to imagine an Irishman just ending up there.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of them ended up there but hadn't much choice. That was Van Diemen's land.
Right,
A lot of Irish people were transported there.
right.
Aye.
But you weren't.
No.
Well, you were transported, but in a different way.
Aye.
And how come Tasmania?
Well, that's where you were sent. You see, I went on to the assisted passage. And I got for £5 because I was under 18. And that's where we finished up in central Tasmania. And it said on the, all the brochures for the emigration to Australia, come to sunny Australia.
Yeah.
And we got there were a foot of snow on the ground.
Was it? You ended up in Australia, in Melbourne, didn't you?
Yes.
And you stayed with, was it a Kathleen McBrearty?
Oh, no, well, I knew the McBreartys.
You knew the
Aye,
McBreartys,
well, I
right.
stayed with Nash's.
Nash's, right.
Actually, Nash's, and they had kept a boarding house, and it was 25 shillings a week. No shower, and there were about 30, mostly Donegal fellas. They all sort of hung together, and Connemara and a few from Mayo, and there were 25 Greeks in the same house.
Really?
And it was a stove where you had to put the money in to feed the meter. So if you were boiling a pot of potatoes or something, you put the money in, and the Greeks, he wouldn't put any money in. He always waited till you put your money in and put the pot on and come out and put the yourself.
So you had your challenges with them?
You had your challenges with them, and there were no showers in it, and you had to go to the public baths to have a bath once a week.
I'm going to talk to you in a moment about this extraordinary story of how you got a big job eventually, and when you turned up, you gave the guy such a shock he nearly pulled out of the contract, but more in a minute. So you just take us to, because as I say, there's so much area we could cover here, but the real big job you got was this contract to dig a trench for how far?
Oh, it was 95,000 feet.
Wow. So
It's 21 mile or something.
21 miles.
Aye.
And that should take probably, with the right equipment at that
No,
time.
well, there were no equipment.
No, but
the equipment was just coming in.
Right, so if you had the equipment that was
Aye.
just coming in, you would have done it in...
Oh, I mean, you'd probably do it now in a couple of months.
Right.
But you might not either, because you'd have as many men around looking at the machine as you'd have working on them days.
Yeah, but you, looking at them, yeah, you convinced this man to give you the contract. Yeah, he didn't know anything about your
Not a
team.
thing.
And you turned up this day.
Aye.
Was it like a Monday or something?
Aye, well, just whatever day we started.
And how many were with you?
Well, we had 6 from Donegal and 1 Kerryman and myself and McCahill.
And he looked at you as if you'd got 2 heads, didn't
Oh,
he?
aye, he did, because we come here just with picks and shovels and all our gear on the tram.
And he said, what are you at?
Aye, that's what he did. A fella called Eric Swinnerton was his name. And we come very friendly with him after.
Yeah. But he thought you were pulling a fast
Oh,
one.
aye, he was an Englishman. Of course, that's all he would think about an Irishman.
But
we went on to do it, and like the first day we done 1,000 feet, the 8 of us, and dug it, and he was wanting to know where the lights were. We said we'd not need many lights, but we were going to have it backfilled by night, and we had.
That's incredible work. So how did you pick these guys?
Well,
Experience?
no, and I suppose you picked them because they had in common. They were from Donegal.
Strong?
There were Bill McBurney from outside Letterkenny, and there were Jim Kern from the back road, and there were Dan Callahan from Fanet, and there were Eddie McFadden from Gweedore, and there were Joe Cannon from Glencullenkill. They were just all Donegal men, and you know, in them days, like the Irish was all at the one level, if you know, they were all sort of in the construction business. And when they'd come anywhere, they'd be looking for where the best money was or where the job was, and you know, it was a sort of a network.
So how long did it take to do the trench?
Well, it took us 9 months. It was all in the city, you could imagine. It was all in the city and very difficult going with traffic and everything, but not to the extent that it is now.
Yeah. And were there times when you wondered why you bothered taking it on?
No, never.
Really?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
No.
And he, of course, was delighted.
Aye.
He couldn't believe he got this.
Aye, and he was a bit shitty on us, that's the word, and there were George Woods, where there were some gear that we didn't have for the job, like things for running out the drums of cable. And he says, we'll take you, this fellow Woods come out, and he seen we're going that well, and he says, come up here to this place. So he took us up to the store, you know, where the P&T stores, and had all this equipment in there. And there were an Irishman in there from Cork called Kelly, and he says, these countrymen of yours, he says, you look after them, see that they have anything they want.
Yeah.
And you know, they were very good, very good.
And there was another contract that you got, wasn't there, as well, and they sort of thought it would take weeks and weeks to do, but it turned out...
Well, the first contract we had, they thought it would take 3 months, and we'd done it in about a month.
Yeah. Just pure graft.
Well, they were great workers, so the best workers out.
Should say today, I mean, you, how many animals have you now?
Oh, well, I farm about 7,000 or 8,000 cattle and maybe 10,000 or 12,000 sheep.
But that's really a hobby for you.
It is a hobby.
You were saying to me some people play golf. That's your fun.
I would rather have that.
But of course you've made most of your money through construction.
That's it.
And you were saying too, what surprises you is that when you hear about all of the tribunals and the financial deals and the corrupt politicians, you can't get your head around it, because in all of your experience in New Zealand and anywhere for that matter, but obviously mostly in New Zealand, you've never had to speak to a politician.
Never had to give a backhander. It was all
above board.
Above board. It would never happen.
So why do you think planning is different there to here?
Well, the planning there, you know, we put in for planning there, and whatever time it takes, that's the time it takes. You know, you can't shortcut it, or you can't talk to anybody about it.
Yeah.
But here there seemed to be, you know, I'll talk to him and he'll talk to you.
I'll rezone this.
I'll rezone that, and
the land's worth more than...
Aye.
You never had any part of that?
No.
I mean, people would ask the question, how does anybody... I mean, they ask this in Ireland, so I'll ask it of you. How does anybody get to be as big as you have in an honest way? You say it can be done.
It can.
Just by being... I mean, you must have come across rogues in your time, because that happens by nature, doesn't it?
Yes, but, you know, I give the 5 or 6 years in the cattle trade, and you could pick the rogues a mile off.
Yeah.
And you would just avoid them.
Yeah. Who runs it now? It's you, but your daughters...
Well, my daughter and me run it.
Together? Yeah.
And we have some good people around us, you know, 3 or 4 good people that's been a long time with us.
So what do you mainly build, then?
Well, we do subdivision for people, like all the noise you hear about estates not being finished and people building houses.
Yes.
Well, in New Zealand, if you're going to subdivide for, say, 200 lots, you've got to do all the work, get it all approved, and before any builder goes on the site. And you hand it over to the council. And you have to have it all right and passed all the inspections, the road sealed, water,
pavements,
power, everything in. And then if you buy a site, then you've got to go to the council and pay them a deposit to cross the footpath, and if you do any damage, you have to fix it.
What a good way of doing it.
Aye.
And does that cut out a lot of hassle?
Oh, it does. Well, there's no hassle. Once you sell the site, you're right.
Okay, you can put the earphones on, the headgear, as we say. A caller just wants to ask, by the way, when you return to New Zealand, will you say hello to Damien, Kathleen and Denise Flanagan? That comes from the McLaughlins and the Ellie's Bun Crowners, so if you come across them.
Oh, they're very good friends of mine. They just live around the corner from me. I see a lot of them.
Yeah. And Margaret, Colin and the boys and Kelly's Bar Frosties and all your friends wishing you well.
Aye.
And by the way, it's Dr. Hugh now. Dr. Hugh Little, he's calling himself. Paddy Hart is on the line. Paddy, how are you?
Good morning, Sean. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
And how are you, Hugh?
Not so bad, Paddy. How are you?
Fine. Rosalie had the breakfast made for you, but you didn't call in.
How is she?
She's listening in the other room. Sure, I wanted to get her to come on the line because she reminded me that she knows you longer than I do.
Yes, she does. I would say there are not too many knows me longer.
That's probably just because she grew up in Raphoe.
Well, you see, you're an import, you see, so you wouldn't have been...
blowing, yeah.
And I blew out.
Yeah, that's right, right. But then, you know, I would have known your father, Hugh, and your mother.
Aye.
But particularly your father, going back to my childhood.
Aye.
And he was a cattleman too.
I was talking to a girlfriend of yours in Galway.
Well, that's the girl that you now fell out about.
Kathleen Boyce.
Steady on there.
There's a story for you, Sean. You know.
What's that?
He stopped speaking to me because Kathleen Boyce was writing me as a college boy in unions.
That was it.
That is a bit different from a drover.
But he never forgave me for years. And then I came and married another girlfriend of his in Raphoe here. So.
Poor Rosaline.
Anyway, Hugh, you know, you've done us proud, and you've never forgotten your roots. Sean and listeners know this, but the people of Raphoe know it better than me. Hugh Greene has come home as Hughie Greene, the fellow who left here in 1948, was it?
49.
49. I remember the time. I remember you going away. But he has never forgotten that he belongs to Donegal. I'm not too sure whether he wanted to be a Letterkenny man or a Raphoe man, but I think he divides his loyalties there.
Yes, it will be. I'll not give the answer to that.
No. He was born here, but he grew up in Letterkenny.
Well, Senator McGlinchey was born in Raphoe too, I see. I read somewhere.
Well, I'm not too sure about that. I would dispute that.
Well,
I know Danny and PJ were born in Raphoe, but I'm not going to concede that Bernard was born in. But anyway, I would concede nothing to Bernard, as you know.
I appreciate that.
And he'll probably, if he's around, he'll probably come on too to answer that.
Cheers, Paddy.
But anyway, Hugh, listen, we'll see you in a few days' time.
That'll do. Thank you.
The door's always open.
Right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you very much. John, how are you, John?
Hello, Sean.
John Sterrett of Lifford.
That's right. Hello, Hugh.
How are you?
Congratulations on your doctorate. You really deserve it. Do you remember the day you picked us, myself and my wife, up in Pukekohe?
Yes, I do.
And took us for...
That's right.
Around one of your properties. And your Jeep, which actually had the registration Raphoe.
You were a cousin of Rolston's.
That's right.
And I said to this fellow Rolston, Jim, he would always be a bit bad-tempered, you see, and you told me where his relations come from, the Castle Finn. So the next cattle sale I met him at, Jim, I went up to him, Jim, and I says, I know what your problem is now. And he looked at me and says, what's my problem? I said, your ancestors come from the same place as me.
That's through my wife now. Hugh, you know, is a great businessman, and I remember that day driving along, and there he was using his mobile phone. I don't really know whether it's legal to use mobile phones in New Zealand or not when you're driving, but he was selling a bit of property, and there he had me writing down phone numbers and things. But then he was selling cattle on the same day, and I remember he insisted that he had to pick these cattle out himself. Excellent herd of cattle he had, so it's great to talk to you again, Hughie, and I would look forward maybe to catching up with you before you go back to New Zealand.
All right, we might catch up with you sometime.
That's great.
Good luck, John.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye.
And another John, I think. Hello, John.
Hello, Sean.
And you spent a couple of days with this man.
I did. I've seen a lot of your callers so far, Sean. I'm from an older generation, but I'm one of the new generation of these people that travel around the world.
Okay.
And I went to Auckland, and I was told to ring Hughie Greene. He know my father, and I would have known him through James McGettigan.
Who's your father?
Seamus Harn.
Oh, John, how are you?
Not so bad.
How are you going?
And just saying, Sean, from a younger generation, you know, rang up Hughie, and I met him a couple of times in Letterkenny, but he was more than good to myself and my girlfriend, and he took us all around, you know, all around Auckland in his house, and there was someone saying, I don't know whether he's a Raphoe man or a Letterkenny man. Well, he's a nice big Jeep out in Auckland, and the number plate on it is Raphoe 1, so I think that answers that question.
Yeah, I think so.
But no, just to say, you know, when I was in Australia and Sydney, a few people had come back from Auckland, and they all said, you know, from around Letterkenny and Churchill and that, Sally Ann Boyle was one girl, and that they all contacted Hughie and his brother John out there, and they were more than good, you know, to some young Irish people just out for a couple of months travelling around New Zealand, and he was, you know, more than kind, and I would just like to thank him for that.
No, well, I thought you were a credit to Letterkenny. I did
Thanks
in
very
every
much.
way.
Thanks very much.
You were one of the most pleasant young fellows I've seen around the place.
Aye.
Oh, that's nice.
And
And when I think of your father, I wonder how he got such a nice son like you.
oh, no.
You were doing well then till then. John, thanks a million.
Thanks very much, Sean.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good.
Now, Daniel stayed out with you as well, didn't he?
Aye,
Yeah.
Daniel O'Donnell.
And I remember you saying to me, I think it was the last time I was chatting to you, because you didn't know him that well before he'd
No.
come out, and he had you in stitches. That's what amazed you, was his humour.
Aye, he had a great crack altogether.
Yeah.
Very down there.
Yeah, and he's still going out.
Aye.
Have you caught any of the shows out there?
No, I don't bother going to them.
You don't do anything like
No.
that? No shows, no theatres,
No,
no
no.
bars,
No, no.
just out with the cows and
The
the
only
sheep.
time I'd be in the bar is when I come to Ireland.
Anyway, do you remember milking the cows in McGee's of Rafo?
I do very well.
Somebody says they remember you doing it as well.
And I sold the mother hens for 3 and 6 apiece.
All right, you're actually
Mrs.
3 and 6.
McGee.
Right. You're evoking a lot of memories here.
Yeah.
Katrina Strange says, thank you very much for your support on my trip to the North Pole. Don't forget to call before you go home.
Oh, that's a nice girl. Nice.
Thomas Sproul wishes you well. Enjoy your holiday.
I know Thomas.
Leonard Crumlish in Terman.
Oh, I've been trying to get a hold of him. Me and him used to deal before I left.
that right?
He's over 80 now.
Gosh. And a Burnfoot listener wishing you well. And Molly Brawley. And,
Molly's a
and
good
Moira
friend.
Rua.
Aye.
She hasn't been out yet, has she?
No.
Well, you never know. Jimmy Canning. Hello, Jimmy.
Jim.
How are you, Jim?
Canning. How are you, Sean?
Not too bad.
Sean, I have a story to tell. First of all, congratulations to Hugh. I'm delighted. I'm delighted for him. My daughter rang me this morning to tell me to be sure and congratulate him. Now, I was in Italy some years back,
Yes,
and I
I
happened to be
remember
in Venice, and I was in a queue to go to the toilet. And this man comes over to me, and he asked me where the gents was. And I said, well, I'm not too sure, but I'm in the queue. So he looked at me and he said, I've never queued up behind women to go to a gent's toilet. And I said, well, you know, you're in Italy now, and, you know, anything goes. So he says to me, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Ireland. I said, where are you from? And he said, I'm from New Zealand. So he said, what part of Ireland are you from? And I said, I'm from Donegal, a wee town called Mount Charlotte. He says, many's a day I sold apples at a fair day in Mount Charlotte.
Aye.
And I thought to myself, isn't this amazing? That here I meet a man from New Zealand who sold apples
Standing
at
waiting.
a fair day in Mount Charlotte.
Standing waiting for a pee, imagine. Behind a crowd of women. Do you remember that?
I do. Did you, is your daughter back from New Zealand?
She is here and she's working in Galway. And
but
she rang me when she heard you were being made a doctorate, and well, you deserved it.
She went to New Zealand to get a Galway man, is that right?
That's right. You certainly kept in touch.
I don't know.
In Galway. Actually, she was working in UCG for a while, and she's moved on to another job now. But I must thank you sincerely for the way you looked after 2 of them at one time.
Yes.
And that was, I think, on New Year's Eve.
Christmas time.
At Christmas.
Aye.
And you collected them and brought them to an island off Auckland.
Aye.
And they had a wonderful time.
Yeah, that was right.
So thanks a million.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
May you live long to enjoy the new title.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
May you never need a doctor. How's that? Congratulations to you from Martin Harley in Ballybofey, cousin of Jim Gallagher in New Zealand.
I know Jim well.
And best of luck to Hughie from Legal Day in Lurgybrack. He was very good to me, you were, when he was out in New Zealand at Christmas there, Legal Day. So many people call in and say that they've maybe not even known you, they've gone out and they've made contact and you've looked after them. Why do you do that?
Oh, well, it just, I suppose I don't know why, but, 99% of them's very nice. That young fella, Highland, was tops with me.
Top man, was he?
Yeah. A lot of very nice people now. Very nice people.
Yeah, and you liked the Donegal connection.
Oh, aye.
Yeah. Paddy Delapp called up wishing you well, too. And you were at Daniel in Auckland with Sally Blake. Daniel sang the song your dad used to sing. We're getting reminded of. Did your dad used to sing a song?
Daddy used to sing a bit. Yeah.
Back after the break, more from Hugh Greene. Dr. Hugh Greene, a Donegal man that's been honoured with a doctorate at Galway University, a man that left school at the age of 12, so there's proof that even if you haven't got the education at school, you can still make good. And I mean, it's an important message to get across. I know we encourage so much kids into education these days, and you've been really struck, Hugh, by the young people who are coming out from Ireland now,
yes.
the difference. But you still have to encourage people who have not done as well through the educational system that, there's still opportunities for people who work hard.
Oh, there are plenty of opportunities, whether you're educated or not. I would say there never was more opportunities.
Yeah, you were talking there about a guy who came out to you, Seamus Brennan, he came out to you, and somebody said there's a guy out here looking for a bit of work, and you says, well, tell him I'll pick him up at 7 in the morning. And you picked him up and you took him out and showed him your land and your farms and the different things that would be needed to be done, and then in the evening you had a good chat, and you said, when will you start? And he started. He's one of your top men now. And what was it? How do you...
and he would have had an engineering degree, civil engineer.
How do you choose a person? I mean, you watch them, it's obviously psychology, a lot of it. You see what they're like, you talk to them.
Well, you can get all the CVs that you want, and you can read them back and front, but they never get to the end. They never tell you what really it's all about.
Yeah.
Like about 5 or 6 years ago, I wanted a fella and look after my livestock, and we put an ad in the paper, and I said to the girl in the office, well, it says, Jane, you run all this, and you can bring him to me when you think he's right. So anyway, she got this Canadian fella, and he was all right, but he only stayed 3 weeks. And I said to her, what are we going to do now, Jane? Well, she says there were 3 or 4 other people there looking for the job, and she says there were 2 Chinese guys. Well, I says, I'll have a look at the Chinese guys, you see. So she got this little fella in, and he was about this height. And
about 5 foot.
I says to him, Ken was his name. I says, are you looking for a job? He says, me want a job badly. I'm 2 years here and I can't get a job. And he had a commerce degree from Hong Kong, and he couldn't get a job. So anyway, I said to him, you want a job badly? He says, I do. Well, I says, you be ready to start tomorrow. So ready to start, and when he went out the door, Jane says to me, you picked the wrong one. He says it was the other fellow. We said, oh, he was the best one of the 2. Well, I says, we got this one. Best man ever had.
Really?
Both me 6 or 7 years now, and good.
Amazing. Alan Sweeney, Moyle Hill, Milford.
Oh, I know.
He saw you. Hope to see you at the Galway races, he says. Will you be there?
I asked him, will he sing?
Pat Dorian, thank you for being so kind to my son, Patrick. There you go. Delighted with your achievement, by the way, says. Mary Jane Patton Rafo, congratulations to Hughie, and used to look after us, or we used to look after you when you were younger.
Because that was my best friend in Ireland.
That right?
She's 86. Oh.
Nice lady. Jared Farrell in Manacunningham wishes you well.
Right.
And Frank and Julia Dugan wishes you well.
Yes, and who them? Well, they were in Australia for a good while.
I'm going to tell that lady, because she can't see you on radio, but actually you were very touched by her calling in.
Very, very.
She looked after you?
Yeah.
And what age is she now?
She's about 87, I would say.
Yeah. Mary Jane Patton.
That's her. I see her.
He was very moved by you calling in. A lot of them have moved in. Frankie Monaghan, see you next week.
I know, Frankie.
Derek McClune, thanks for Hughie looking after us in 1998. The Friends of Lettykenny General Hospital want to thank you because you've been a regular contributor. And Willie Duffy and Fanad, congratulations to you. Don't forget to call and see me. You can't get round everybody.
No, it's very difficult.
You know.
Very difficult.
So I was asking you in the break there, what about coming home? You know, the Irishman always harbours this desire to be back where he was born, but not for you now.
No, not for me. It might have been 30 years ago, but not now.
Is it because of the family and everything?
And I like the way of life. I wouldn't get that way of life that I've got.
Why is that? What's different about it in New Zealand?
Well, it's very relaxed, and people, you go about do your own thing, and you could murder somebody around the corner if somebody seen you, they wouldn't even say.
Really?
It's very, people mind their own business, and that's not, it's not all sort of regalia here with class distinction or things like that.
None of that.
None of that.
No, because my sister, lives there, and then that's something she says. I mean, there's no, there wouldn't be snobbery or anything like that.
Oh, not at all. You just do your own thing, and away you go.
Yeah.
And they're not, you don't sort of flaunt your wealth or sort of, you just, it's a bit different here.
You could be driving around in the best Rolls Royces and all that. I mean, none of that.
No.
Just a big Jeep with Rafo 1 on it.
Rafo 1.
Anyway, it's great to see you again. And as you can tell by the calls coming in, there's a lot of people think an awful lot of you.
Yes.
Congratulations on your doctorate. It's an honorary doctorate of law.
Yes.
Right. So that can go on your passport now, and you'll be getting even better places on the plane. Although one treat that you have for yourself, and it's a rare one because you don't stand on ceremony or go is you always go first class. Only because you can afford to and you don't want to be cramped.
No, well, years ago I was too stingy to go first class. I'd take the cheapest flight rather than the best one. So the family shouted me a first class ticket about 10 or 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And that was the end of it, no more. I said, that's the way to go.
So different.
So different.
Nearly a bed now.
Well, we have a bed now, and you have a little locked-up compartment. And you can lie there, and it's just like being out late and Donegal.
Really?
Oh, very excellent.
And it costs thousands, though, does it?
10,000 of our money.
Wow. Okay, well done, Hugh. Are you going to stay for the Letterkenny reunion?
Well, I'm thinking about it, yes.
Yeah, Bernadette Duffy sent that in. And Seamus McGettigan wishes you well as well.
Right.
Dr. Hugh Greene. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Back after the break.